Okay, I think we are. I think we are live. Let me link this in reswitched. Um, Welcome to anyone who joins while I'm doing that, which will take a moment. Twitch TV and vape enthusiast. Yeah, I don't know that we will get a ton of viewers tonight. It would surprise me if we did, I guess. Also, I should go turn down the fan that I have going on. Hey, Substance. I don't know if my voice sounds strange right now. It probably does because there's like a huge fan pointing in my direction. Let me go turn that off. That would be the intelligent thing to do. Okay, that's sorted. And things should be more normal now, probably. I have no idea how many people I should expect to show up to this, since this is A, kind of late at night, and B, kind of off the cuff. Hey, Turtle. Hey, Dubs. But yeah, so, you know, I'm no longer particularly sick. I mean, I feel basically fine at this point. And a bunch of the stuff for 12.0 is done now. And the like really big thing that needs to get done still is that I need to implement the new IPC protocol that Nintendo added in 12.0. And the new IPC protocol is going to be a lot of work, actually. It looks to me like it's going to be several days of work. But we're going to do our best to get it done as quickly as we can. So, I have basically labeled the relevant copy of SM. Basically, I haven't labeled any of the actual SM functions, but I have labeled basically all of the TIPC functions. And by basically, I mean like 80%, because that's all you need to re-implement something. 80% is good enough. Sorry if you hear me drinking, by the way. So, SM starts by doing this like server initialization that it didn't used to do, which is pretty interesting. It allocates a TLS slot for usage by the server, and then it calls this port manager initialization stuff. Hey, Meowski Gamer BR. Good. And Rodri 2018. And so I have basically derived all of these types. This like port manager is huge. It's a C++ virtual object. It's got like an internal ID. It has an atomic variable that's a number of sessions. It has like a port number internally to the overall server manager. So SM is like port 0 and SMM is port 1. Then it has like this OS thing for managing waiting on objects. It's got a message queue. It's got a little helper to link the message queue into the wait manager. Hey, John Jaded. And then it's got some storage for the message queue, and it's got all of these entries and like a manager for them. And the entries are pretty simple. It's basically just a lock, pointers to the range in which the entries live. Like actual storage for the entries, and then the waitable manager that this is using. And a waitable object is a handle, something that can be waited on. There's this type enum. There's this manage, like is it managed by the current thing? And then there's the service object pointer. Would you ever consider doing a full reversing stream where you do the labeling and stuff all from scratch? Yeah, that would have been nice to do for this. And yeah, Psycho, I'm feeling better at this point. I would have loved to have done a reversing stream for this, but like, I was kind of sick, and I did most of this on a laptop in my bed, and I don't think that I could really stream reversing from a laptop in my bed. I apologize for that. But yeah, no, we've made a lot of progress on 12. We're like basically done with our reverse engineering. There's some like ERBT stuff, but this is non-urgent. I'm gonna do this later. This is the big thing remaining. The kernel is reverse engineered and implemented. I linked this pull request if you want to like track what I'm doing. Yeah, the kernel is all updated for 12.0.0 now, which was a lot of work. There's this huge diff on the wiki if you want to see what's different in the kernel. The answer is tons. Man, this is like the stupidest joke, but anytime I have the opportunity, I love making this joke where you type "fuck the police" and then use Command H's to delete police and replace it with something else that starts with P. This is like the third or fourth commit for Atmosphere that I've made this joke in, but it's such a good joke. Sorry, I'm an idiot. I am amused by stupid things. But so when it initializes the port manager, it sets the port manager's ID. It sets the number of sessions to 0. It does like the OS level initialization. It initializes the entry manager, and I think this is just like an inline call to this dash entry manager dot initialize or something. I think that makes the most sense based on what I observe. And then it calls manage named port, and the really interesting thing is SM used to have 61 sessions, and now it is 69. Nice. I'm such an idiot. But this is especially interesting because when I saw this, I was like, wait, what the fuck? One of the big issues with SM and with IPC in general is that you can only have 64 handles in a call to wait synchronization. This is because Nintendo supports Windows, and Windows OS like wait for multiple objects only accepts 64 handles. And so anything above 64 should be impossible under like normal Horizon handle rules. So this is really interesting. And then it does like actual port registration. And that's basically, you know, it creates this new waitable object like on the stack. It sets the type to 1, and 1 is port and 2 is session. I haven't like actually made an enum for this because it's in my brain. But yeah, it uses the input handle. The type is 1 for port. It's managed, which is why you see 0101. And the actual object is null pointer. And so that's all of the actual server setup. And then it creates a new thread with the same priority as the current thread. And you'll see after it does this, this is actually, I haven't labeled this, and then OS start thread. This is like the thread type that I didn't bother giving a name. It starts it with this thread function, and then it calls sub 2200 with argument 1. And if you actually look at this function, it calls sub 2200 with the input argument, and the input argument is 0. So basically, all this is really doing is it is executing sub 2200 with an input of 0 and an input of 1, each on a separate thread. And what this does is it gets the manager with that index. I call this like server manager, so I guess it's like nn tipc server manager loop port manager, or even just loop process or something like this. And this will be like nn tipc port manager loop process, or like loop auto, or whatever you want to call it. But basically, this is just calling a member function on each of the port managers. And the first thing this member function does is it calls this function, which I didn't name, but this sets the TLS value to be the input argument, and the input argument is the actual port manager object. So the TLS slot that was allocated is basically just a way to access the port manager for the current thread without actually having explicit knowledge of where it's located. Which is necessary because tipc... I have a lot of really good feelings about tipc. I think it's a good protocol, but one of the really nice things about CMIF, or CMIF, or whatever you want to call it, is that CMIF didn't require you to have any knowledge of how you are being hosted if you want to add a sub-object or something. And tipc does. tipc needs you to explicitly know the server manager that you're registering with. And when you're returning an output object, the implementation command has to register the handle with the manager. It's no longer automatic. And I get that that's faster, and I get that that's leaner, but I think it is a design flaw, because it was really nice to have it automatically taken care of and not have to think about it, and to separate the actual implementation logic for the command from the logic that processes it. I think that's a bad change, but, you know, whatever. Anyway, so they clear the first part of tipc. This is TLS. They just clear the first part of TLS so that when they read commands from it later, nothing bad happens. And then there's all these nested loops, but it doesn't really matter. You don't need to know very much about them. So the first thing that the loop does is it calls this entry manager reply and receive function. I have made up all these names, by the way. These are all fake names. I have just given them whatever names make sense to me. And this first calls reply and receive, which is this like new OS function that was added a couple updates ago, with argument 4 as the reply target. A2 is like an output. This is actually an NNOS multi-weight holder type pointer. I should actually do that. NNOS multi-weight holder type pointer. And basically it loops until it successfully gets an output object. Like it will just call this forever until something is signaled. And once something is signaled, it locks access to the entry manager. It locates the entry in the array. If it didn't find the entry in the array, it doesn't return anything. And if it does, it clears the output waitable holder type and returns a pointer to the like entry object. And so the important thing to know about this function is that if it is like a session object that's being returned, it will return the object and the output argument will be 0. But if it's just, you know, like an adjacent object, something incidentally waited on that the server happens to also know about, then it will return null pointer and the output argument will be set to the relevant holder. And so, I mean, it does this thing where it says, well, if I don't know why I cast it to a D word, actually. That's kind of strange because it doesn't return a D word. It returns a pointer. Does it return a pointer? Interesting. Oh, no, wait, that's a result code. Oh, I'm being an idiot, right. I am being an idiot. Being an idiot. It returns a result code. So that was just wrong of me to say. But there is the thing with A2 being null pointer or not. Oh, right, it is 2 output pointers. That was dumb. I was wrong there. It's setting argument 3 to the thing when it's a session. Totally wrong of me. Anyway, so this is a result. If the result is not 0, so if it failed, it checks that it's an OS library result. And if it's an OS library result, it just returns. And then this is actually, what's it called? This is OS result receive list broken. And so you'll actually know, I don't know why that comment doesn't stick, but you'll notice that this is actually exactly the same logic as here. And so if the result is OS receive list broken or session closed for receive, then it will like close the relevant entry, it'll close the handle, and it'll decrement the session count. This is like v3 is at this atomic num sessions. Anyway, if it succeeds, then if there is a waitable holder, then it's not a session. So this is like the auxiliary path. And otherwise now v24 is like whatever the tipc object is. If the type is 2, so if it's a session, then it will process the request for the session. And this process request is pretty simple. It gets the like command type. If you go to IPC marshalling. By the way, I don't know if you guys want me to explain all of this before I start talking about actually implementing it. I just figure it's probably good for me to explain all of it so that we have a good picture of how it works, so that we're not confused when I'm describing the internals. But yeah, so it checks the type. If the type is 0, then it returns this like invalid format result. Otherwise, if it's 15 is a special tag meaning close. It like closes the entry and then it returns the special result to signal that it's closed. Hey, StockPixel. And otherwise, it calls the object's virtual process request function. So this is like the vfunc that does the like big switchy statement that we saw earlier. And then if it failed, if it returned any results other than CA23, which is, oh yeah, we closed it, then it needs to close it, and then it decrements the session counter, and we're not replying to anything. But if it succeeded, then, and this is really fucking jank. I like hate this actually. This is revolting. So this, you don't need to care about this. This is parsing the output that the like processor wrote to TLS. This is actually generic HIPC parsing code. And this is getting, you don't need to care about all of this, but basically, this gets the very last word of raw data, and it checks if it is C823, which is like a special result code that is like tipc request, result request deferred. And if the request is deferred, then it calls this like SM waitlist manager member function to like process the deferred request. And it like assumes that the command implementation has done some synchronization work on this waitlist manager. So this is really gross. Like, this is actually revolting, if I'm being honest. I would not have done this way. But whatever, you know, the heavens instruct and the children obey. I will do what Nintendo does. Whether or not it's good. But what's really weird is, like, this is an SM type, but it's inside of a tipc object. And so, like, the possibility is either the tipc object is templated to take in, like, a generic object that can be used for deferrals this way, which seems weird. I mean, possible, but really weird. Or, if it's not, like, a templated parameter, this type, then SM has, like, extended the tipc server processor. And it's, like, a bespoke processor only used for SM. And that seems possible, actually, to me. I was looking at PGL some, because PGL also uses tipc. It's only SM and PGL right now. And if I like go here, yeah, that's what I'm pulling up right now. Void no return. I like checked this earlier. This is an inmain. There's all of this stuff, and then this is like PGL main. It's mostly unchanged. But this function right here is the actual like process loop for the PGL tipc server, and it's really simplified. Like, this function is very simple, actually. It's basically just while true, if some var clear TLS. Apply handle. I think the variables are apply handle. It doesn't really matter though. Is g manager dot process at done at apply handle or something like that. Like, this is an insanely simple function. But when I actually look at this like processor function, let me mark unexpected default as being no return. It is like clearly the same function, but it's super simplified. It calls this 0x30 function, which is, this is the like entry manager or port manager, whatever, waits. This is the reply and receive function that we saw earlier. And then, like, it only actually supports the case where it has sessions. It doesn't even contain the logic for non-sessions. So that's out. And then it's this super simplified thing, and it doesn't have any of the deferral logic. So I'm kind of leaning towards maybe it's a bespoke extension, but it could also just be a template. Like, I know how I would write this as a template is the thing. So it could go either way. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet. We'll figure it out when we get there. So it's kind of interesting. But then the actual like interesting thing, all right, if type is not 1, then there's like, this is a switch statement. It'll like accept a session, and then it'll register the session. And this is the really interesting thing. It locks the server manager, and then it finds the server manager that has the fewest number of sessions. With each one has 35, because there are 70 total. That's like clearly templated. I know how I would template that. And then it assigns the object to the least burdened manager. So it like roughly load balances, and then it sends this message to let the relevant server know that it needs to add the object. Oh yeah, when it's deferred, this basically boils down to sending a message to, if I remember right from earlier. But yeah, it'll like receive a message, and message type 1 is trigger a resume on a deferred request, which basically just calls process request on like the saved waitlist copy of stuff. Hey Tenebrio. And in the case where it receives message type 0, that's add an object, there's all of this BS, which is like, this is a port number. This is like doing weird allocator stuff. This is really not at all how I would implement this, but it's fine. It works well enough. It's like virtual function allocators, which is, strange, but whatever. Well, I don't need to worry about this for quite a little while yet. Yeah, so this is the SM processor table. And we were looking at this earlier, and when you actually think about how this is generated, it's much, much simpler than the logic is for CMIF. So this will actually be kind of fun to write. I'm looking forward to writing this. This is kind of the critical component here, right? And so what I'm probably going to do next is I'm going to discuss how we'll implement this, because Nintendo is using some kind of an IDL. They have to be, because they're auto-generating this. And I don't think Nintendo is crazy enough to use C++ as an IDL for C++ in the way that I do. And they are also not using the latest C++ standard, and so they're missing a bunch of niceties that make it reasonable for me to implement stuff using constant evaluation. But fuck IDLs very much. I will regret that statement when I switch to using an IDL in like 3 years. But we are on the constant evaluation train for life. So we will be doing constant evaluation. And that means we need to implement this via constant evaluation. I'm glad that it's useful to you, Psycho. I'm always happy to hear that the stuff that I do is useful to people. But yeah, so this is really tricky to implement, and this is like the bulk of what I would like to get done tonight. Is I would like to have some sense of how I'm going to do the templating for this. So let's, and I don't think I've ever done real development like this on stream, but you guys will get to see some of my internal process here, I guess. So our problem is that we want to take in as input some number of command IDs and implementer functions. And we want to output some function that looks like switch case command ID command process command. And I know how I would do this with a switch in the easy case, but we have a complication, which is that Nintendo changes the formats of their commands across system updates, and we need to support every system update. It sucks. I hate having to support every system update because it's a lot of work and they break shit all the time, but we have to. And that makes doing a switch kind of complicated, right? Because if you have like an association of command IDs to functions that's loose, because usually I implement this kind of stuff with macros. Like, in my ideal world, I guess, I have like case command ID if get firmware version is in some range, process command A, else process command B. And so that's kind of the ideal, right? But I don't know that we can do that, because if you look at the way that we're macroing right now, and assuming that our macroing will be like substantially similar, at least, because I really like the declarative nature that we have right now. If we look at, for example, SM right now, stratosphere, SM, I would like to have something like this where I define new interfaces. Right, like essentially I'm defining this interface and I have command ID and then like it's basically just a command ID and a function signature, which, you know, works pretty well for our needs. But if you have multiple command IDs and with that map to the same functions, multiple command IDs that map to different functions with different firmwares, right? Like in this declarative firmware, if there weren't duplicate command IDs, I could do as part of the macro expansion, you know, like case command ID or something, but I can't have duplicate case labels. So that's a problem. And I think actually, unless someone who is a lot smarter than me comes up with a solution to that, I think that rules out a switch statement. So we are going to put our trust in the optimizer, and we are going to not use a switch statement, right? So what is the next best thing to a switch statement? I mean, it's an if-else chain, right? Like we would like this to be a huge if-else chain, and we will trust the optimizer to be good, because GCC is good optimizer, and I trust GCC. So keeping in mind that the data is going to look something like this, how do we want to do this? Then like a more realistic pass might look like if false, and then like the body of our command macro will look like else if command ID. It'll look like const auto command ID equals, so command ID equals current command ID and const auto firmware version where is in range process command A. And I think we can probably trust the optimizers to do a decent job with this. So that's nice. But, big but, I know, huge, enormous but. What I would almost like, even more than this, would be to get a dispatch table like we have for CMIF. And we don't want a real table. We don't want the table to manifest, because manifesting the tables is, how do I put this? Gross. I just want it to be fast. And having an actual table means that we're doing function call indirections. And we can see that this is all being inlined, and I really want this to be inlined. Like, this being inlined is very much my ideal. So, even better, what if n adds command ID which conflicts with the firmware version you have defined? I mean, that doesn't matter, right? Because I will define what firmware's commands are valid for, and I will just keep my table correct so that everything is fine for whatever specific version there is. Right, so one thing that would be cool would be, like, let's say I have this type where I have, like, say, template type name implementation, or rather just impl, class. In fact, let's go to Godbold, because I'm starting to, like, actually think about how I want to do this. And when I get to this point of thinking, it's good to use Godbolt. Because that keeps me, like, in I'm writing syntactically valid C++ kind of a sense. And yeah, let's use trunk GCC, f no exceptions, touch f no RTTI, dash 03 dash std equals GNU ++ 20. Okay, and then we want to include concepts. We want to include, we'll include other stuff as we need it. C_std include cdef, include type traits. That's the stuff that you need to, like, do anything in C++. Right, so let's say we have template, type name, impl, class, tipc, or namespace, AMS, tipc, impl. Class object adapter, public impl. Do I want it to inherit? Do I want it to inherit? Inheriting is kind of nice. Yeah, we'll inherit. That's fine. Although it's also kind of nice if we don't inherit, actually. Right? Like, is it... Let's look at what Nintendo is doing, is a better question. I look here. What is it passing when it does these functions? It is... Man, is this even taking in, like, a this pointer? It's kind of not. These are kind of static functions. Right? Like, okay, so 16 is initialized. Where is it writing? Yeah, this is a development for my custom firmware for the Nintendo Switch, Nico Boss. Okay. So where is it deserializing the input process ID? The input process ID from +0xc. Yep, that'll be the process ID. And it's storing it at, okay, it's storing it at this +0x28. So we do, in fact, have a pointer to the implementation objects. That is really good to know. Okay. Yeah, we're not going to inherit. I was just wondering if it was inheritance or if we had a pointer, and the answer is that we have a pointer. Private. Impl, public, context per object adapter, impl p, and impl p. Isn't this stuff proprietary? How are you able to interface? Yes, this stuff is proprietary. I am a reverse engineer, and I developed exploits that give me control over the console, and now I develop a custom firmware for it that uses my exploits to run my code instead of theirs. I'm a reverse engineer. This is reverse engineering. But okay. And then we have, like, this, public. What we really have is this, virtual results, namespace AMS, using result equals event 32t to do import result from vapors. Yeah, this is kind of forward engineering because I'm really trying to mimic the behavior that I observe here. Virtual results, process, request. Although this doesn't even need to be virtual, really. Oh, it does, right, because it'll be different object adapters. In fact, what we really need is a class object adapter base, public virtual result process request equals 0. I hate that I hit Command S. And then this will public object adapter base, and then this will override. Okay, so that's better now. Oh, actually, this is taking it as an argument stuff. So this is not precisely how Nintendo is doing this, in fact. That's really interesting. Why are they doing it that way? Why are they doing it that way? Well, it doesn't really matter. We can change this to work that way once I understand how it's invoked better. The important thing is that we have a process request function that has access to the implementation object. Right? Like, maybe this will be an argument somehow, and like it gets static casted to impl. Right? Like, maybe this has requires is implementation valid impl, and then, you know, this like takes in some kind of base, and then this is like impl equals static cast impl base, right? Like, maybe it does something like this, and that could work too. But I don't want to think about that right now, so we're just going to have it be a member, and we'll worry about it later. Because it just super doesn't matter. Okay. And then, this is going to be kind of gross. You guys are going to think, why the fuck are you doing this? But I think it's going to work out really well, actually. I have a good feeling about this. Sorry, I'm thinking about how I want to do the constant evaluation here. Because I want there to be some form of dispatch table that I like iterate over using constant expressions. That's the ideal. You guys will hate this, but I enjoy it because it'll fuck with the astronomers. That's a good question. Why didn't Nintendo use Linux kernel as a base? Because they're on an embedded system. Linux is not... Linux would be worse for their games than their operating system. Their OS ditches POSIX. It's not Unix, and their OS is so much better than Linux. It's because their stuff is better. Also, yeah, the Linux kernel has bugs, and their kernel doesn't have bugs. QED. I say it because it's true. Yeah, no, Misan, I'm thinking the optimizer will be able to handle this. Especially because what we're going to do is we are going to have this be entirely if const expr. Like, the way that I'm envisioning it right now, it is fully if const expr. And I think that what we want to do is we want to do, like, ultimately the same thing that we're doing with the dispatch tables inside... Oh, no, it is mission, but mission misspelled it, and I pronounce it Misson because it's way funnier to act like the misspelling is intentional. Like, mission's name is... Mission, but I say Misson because he misspelled it, and I like to roll with the misspelling. Yeah, no, right? It's just super funny. I think that we will have like struct dispatch table entry. And in fact, I think that we actually do need to like do some like bullshit where we inherit to make this work out, but it's fine. Class service or class service object base or something, right? Like, it doesn't really matter. This is all fake. This is mostly just prototyping at this point. But a dispatch table entry should basically be a U32 or a U16 now. U16 command ID. U32 firmware low. Or actually, I guess this is gonna be a U16, can't it? Can it? Fuck, I don't remember. How do I do this in CMIF? Because I essentially want the same basic structure. Include stratosphere, SF, CMIF, CMIF service, dispatch. Service command meta. Yeah, so it's 2 HOS versions, a command ID, and then this like weird, this super complicated thing. And what we really want is, I mean, basically this wholesale. We'll edit it a little bit. Using U32 equals U32T, using U16 equals U16T, using U8 equals U8. Hey, Kintlith. 8T. Space HOS. Enum version. And then what we really want here is basically We want a member. We want a pointer to a member function that takes in no input and returns a result for service object base, essentially. And so the way we will do this is, how do I want to do this? I guess this is going to be results. I'm going to look at the function pointer syntax. Member function pointer syntax C++. Okay, there we go. Int service object base handler. And then this is the same, essentially, and this gets the handler. You know what? This is easier if it's just a function pointer. It's fine. I'm okay with this just being a function pointer. Results, handler, service, object, base. This. And this will simplify things. And this is not quite how Nintendo is doing it, but I don't really care at this point, right? Because they have a bunch of auto-gen advantages that we don't have, and we will do functionally the same parsing. So it doesn't really matter. Okay. So if we've done that, then we will assume that the implementation objects impl will have impl s tipc dispatch table is an std array, is a context for std array, of service command metas, and that should work of some size. It doesn't really matter what the size is. And so this is where you guys are going to start hating me. But I promise this is the most efficient way to do this. Define for I in 0 to 64 handler. I know you're thinking, what the fuck are you doing? But I promise this is where the magic happens. Handler 0, handler 1. In fact, let me do this in Notepad++, where we have the advantage of, you know, being able to do stupid things. Oh yeah, no, eventually it all comes down to C macros. This is how we're basically just doing manual loop unrolling, guys. Don't worry. It's just loop unrolling. Don't worry. Don't worry. It is just loop unrolling. Yeah, exactly. This is how you do context for stuff. Otherwise, I would have to do shit with index sequence, and that's gross. So we're not going to use index sequence. We're going to do this the Chad way. This is how you do things when you're an adult, guys. Oh, this is going to turn into an if-else. You'll see. You'll understand eventually, or you won't. But maybe you will. Okay, so we will support up to 64 commands, and that'll be fine. Okay. So now I've got this. Wait, I also need to add the things that make this all effectively one line. Yeah, no, like, again, I said you guys would hate it, and you will, but you'll understand when you're older, I promise. It's just so optimal. Okay, so static assert impl s, actually even better, impl get service dispatch table. Cool. So now we've got a constant reference to the dispatch table. Static assert dispatch table data size is less than 64. Okay. Yes, exactly. I promise this will make sense pretty soon. Okay. Define tipc dispatch handler in. Okay. And the way this is going to look is it's going to be like if const expr false for I in 0 to 64 tipc dispatch handler else. Dude, don't worry about it. And then we want to support defaults because the SM handler has a default, but the PGL one doesn't. If const expr impl process defaults service command, if const expr requires. Man, how do you do an inline concept again? Oh yeah, don't worry. The braces shouldn't surround it. There will be braces in there. C++ 20 if const expr requires inline concept. I forget how you do that. I forget how you do this. That's actually not a fan. That's like a car outside, I think. Requires. It's like requires. There's a super weird syntax. Requires. Ah, yeah, there it is. Ad hoc constraint. Requires. Process default service. Man, what's this complaining about? I forget how you do this. There's some syntax for this. Man. I hate the fact that I'm not remembering this. I'm sure that I've done this somewhere in Atmosphere. Fine. I'll just define an actual concept. That's boring. Template, type name T. Concept has default service command. Processor is requires T process default service commands. Same as result. What is this complaining about? STC same as. Wrong number of template as. Wrong number of template arguments. Oh, right. This needs to be in brackets. Okay. And then this will now just be if const expr impl if const expr has default service command processor impl impl default service default Yeah, Envid, check out the 12.0.0 page on the wiki. I put up a bunch of stuff there. Like I added a like complete diff for the kernel, which is pretty interesting. Else, return tipc results, whatever. I don't know what result code this is. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so now we do the actual bulk of this. And I wonder what kind of car that is. It's very loud. It might be a bus or something. I live right next to the road. Else, if constexpr, and in fact we are going to write this. We're gonna write this in here so that I can do the thing at the end. Yeah, it might be a street cleaner. Else if constexpr n is less than dispatch table dot size. Okay. Tremaine lives next to a road and shouts at astronomers. Okay. Slight problem. I don't think that we can have this be an if constexpr. Can we? I guess we could. But then this just stops being an else, right? Like, Misson, do you think that it will optimize a bunch of nested ifs, where each if returns unconditionally? I think it probably will optimize that fine, right? Like, do you think the optimizer will do if return just as well as if else? I think it probably will, so I think that's fine. Yeah, I think that'll be fine. And then this actually gets moved out of here, and this just becomes the like default case down at the bottom, and it's no longer really an else. Okay. So else if constexpr n is less than dispatch table size. If dispatch table n dot matches command ID oh yeah, I also want to do I'll just add these temporary placeholders. Use 16 get command ID trash version get firmware version. Const auto command ID equals get command ID. Yeah, I think that's probably for dev kits though. I will copy paste this back in when we're done. Const auto firmware version is HOS get version. Okay. Firmware version. In fact, if we're taking in a service object base, then it like kind of ceases to matter. We don't need this anymore. I guess we do this the way that they do it. And we take in a service object base. What's the name of the folder for Ramafest for the mods? I mean, it's the like sd/atmosphere/contents/ and then the title ID or the program ID for the program that you're adding mods to /ramfs, I think, from memory. Okay, anyway. So if it matches, then we want to return dispatch table n dot handler object. And this should be, I think, at this point. Oh right, I forgot to do the thing where I actually make it all one line. Okay. Let's see about that. I think that this basically does the dispatch that I want, assuming that the type has a thing. Yeah, Nissan, it's because I want this to be optimized as though it is an if-else chain, and how else do you handle a variable number of commands with a guarantee that the loop is unrolled? Right, like, recursion isn't guaranteed to always inline, right? Like, if I do it recursively, then there is zero, I have no way to force an inlining. I am at the whims of the optimizer. And I have seen the optimizer not inline stuff that's recursive. And I also don't want this dispatch table to actually manifest. Right? Like, the dispatch table, this matches should be, I'm going to make this always inline. And this is also going to be always inline. And so this dispatch table object should not actually exist. Right? Like, this should not appear in RO data. And if you, like, recursively pass an index, then this isn't constexpr. Like, this is a constant expression. In fact, I can do constexpr auto dispatch entry is dispatch table n. In fact, this should really be a .invoke on the object, where that's like an always inline invocation on the object. That's better. But the justification at the end of the day is that there is no way for the optimizer to do anything other than I want here. You know, the dispatch table be a variadic template. I can't have the dispatch table be a variadic template because the dispatch table is just a member of the implementation type. Right, like, I guess implementation could have a templated member, maybe, but that's very strange. This is a substantially more natural way to do this kind of unrolling. Right, like, until we get constexpr 4, this is just how you do this. Yeah, it really is strange. As someone who writes a lot of constant evaluation code, it's definitely strange. Hey, Malika. I'm doing pretty well. Like, this will produce better assembly than the recursion. As someone who played around with this for the, like, SF serialization, I did a lot of revisions for the SF impulse serialization. And, like, you'll see me do in a bunch of places this kind of thing where I just invoke it manually with all arguments 0 to 7. And it's because the optimizer works best with this kind of manual unrolling versus a recursion. Like, the other way that you could do it is you could generate an index sequence, and then you could do a comma operator variadically expanding the index sequence. But this produces better assembly, so we do this. But okay, so this is like some vague facsimile of how we will... What is the actual complaint here? Like backslash a new line separated by space, tipc dispatch handler. Oh, do I have a space here? That'd be pretty funny. Oh yeah, delete those. Do I need to update spacecraft? No, you don't need to update spacecraft. Is there literally anything they can do that makes spacecraft need an update? I don't think there is. Right, like spacecraft should never need an update as far as I know. Oh, DRAM. There are new DRAM IDs, yes. Go look at HexKYZ's notes for that. You should talk to me once the stream is done, or talk to HexKYZ. Just message the EMUC Atmosphere DM chat asking about DRAM IDs for spacecraft, and HexKYZ will do stuff for you. Anyway. This is basically how I want this to look. And so then the question is, how do I generate these dispatch tables? So actually, I am pretty satisfied with this. Right, I want to take in any object at the end of the day that meets some specification, like the same way that I do for SF. And the way that I do that for SF is I have these adapters, and let me look at those to remember how I do that. I have autogen impl macros and autogen interface macros. And you know, this is like mostly sane code from what I remember. And we're probably going... Got the vape cloud. That's pretty good. And I expect that our tipc logic will end up looking a lot like this. Right? Like this dispatch table stuff works very well, I feel like. In fact, a lot of this I would like to reuse mostly directly, but I kind of can't. I kind of can't. How do you end up going about the assembly? You keep backwards compatibility? Kind of. It's complicated. We'll get there when we get there. Like, the new SM is a ways away from actually being implemented because I need to figure out how I'm doing this IPC deserialization. And I know it's 11:15 my time, but I expect to be going for a few more hours, so... Don't worry, we've got plenty of time to figure out what the fuck we're doing here. Also, I used SCD array, I think, but I didn't actually include array. So let me think about this. How do I want to do this? Right, like, I think that I fundamentally want my definitions to look the same. Right, like, I really like this interface format, and it would be really, really cool if I just, for example, did AMS tipc define interface, AMS SM impl I user interface, AMS SM I user interface info. Right, like, I really like this declarative format, and I think that I will try to keep it this way. So I think that we will use a lot of this wholesale again. I think that's optimal, so to speak, anyway. But, okay. A lot of this I can basically keep the same. Argument types, parameter count. Yeah, okay. Except I don't want to be doing virtual functions. I, like, very much don't want to be doing virtual functions. What's this about running Atmosphere on a Raspberry Pi? Not Atmosphere, but we have ported the Horizon kernel to run a Raspberry Pi. Like, needs some custom userland stuff still, but the actual kernel is like booting and like launching processes on Raspberry Pi, which is pretty cool. I don't think the repository for that is public right now, but you know, eventually it'll make its way into trunk. So yeah, okay, let's say that I keep this format because I really like the declarative format that we have. I think that we totally skip the virtual function stuff. And if we are skipping the virtual function stuff, how do I optimize this? Sorry that like so much of the stream is just going to be like me going, how do I do this? But that is kind of the cost of me trying to figure out how to implement these kinds of things on the fly. So my requirements are that I want to take in any class that meets these like is whatever constraints. And so long as I meet these constraints, I want to be able to invoke on that class the relevant member functions. And so what does this like handler actually look like, right? So let's prototype that for a moment while I think about this. Handler. The handler is going to look like results, some handler function, service object base, this. And in fact, some handler function is going to be a member function, class myAdapter, template type name t, class myAdapter, public service object base, public, and this is going to be like static, I guess. It's going to like static results, some handler function, and then we're going to do my adapter, or object, service object adapter, this pointer, static cast after this. Okay. And then right now the serialization logic is going to be entirely the like data that we need to deserialize is going to be inside of TLS, and so we need to deserialize it. And so fundamentally, what we want to do is we want to we want this like have an embedded implementation, don't we? How do I do that here? Do I like actually have it store the implementation base or something? I think I allow the base to be either a pointer or an inherited object when doing like actual implementations here. And that's pretty nice, but we don't have to do it that way. Type name base, type name impleholder, type name implegetter, type name root. That is all fine. Yeah, no, I will push a lot harder at the like running the OS on other hardware thing once I re-implement file system services. What is my favorite color? I think I've sent it in reswitched before. Let me just search from me blue. It's a shade of blue. It's like a very specific shade of blue. Have I sent the actual RGB code for it in reswitched? I would like to think it. I would like to think so. I'm sure that I have, but I don't know what the actual like pound RGB code is off the top of my head. I have it saved somewhere. But it's a particular shade of... It is a particular shade of blue. No, it's not close to CN. I'll message it to you later. I have it saved somewhere. But I should focus on this right now. Right, the way that I like actually do the dispatch stuff here in the interface is I have the service command meta being this command macro of define dispatch table entry, which is, you know, like service command meta holder, taking in an interface and some arguments and returning a value. But the good news is we don't actually have to like do the arguments here. Because this will be fundamentally taking in an interface and AMS SF impulse sync function name. Yeah, it's taking in a function pointer as a template argument. So we'll basically do the same thing here, right? Like fundamentally, we want to do so much of the same stuff here. The real difference is going to be in the actual deserialization logic. Because like this stuff, so much of it I want to mostly reuse verbatim. I just don't want the virtual function pointers. I want it to be, static. Because it's better that way. TLS is indeed thread local storage. It is some bit of memory that is dedicated to a specific thread. It's 0x200 bytes for Horizon on ARM64, with 0x100 being dedicated to the Horizon message buffer used for IPC. And this handler function is like for the specific dispatch thing. When I first started working on the switch, I thought it stood for Transport Layer Security and was very confused. Yeah, that's a pretty fair mistake. So we need some way of getting the implementation object, right? Like T is get T, and then the only thing that we really care about is doing like we assume that we have some access, because this is like a macroed function or whatever. It's the implementation command. And so what we really want to do is we want to do, how am I doing this here? Yeah, this is like service command meta holder. It was really like some service command serializer generator T T whatever commands. And I can kind of worry about that later too. Right, like I don't need to do this stuff right now. I feel pretty good about this. How can you script in C++? Oh, you're responding to Zangalora. the really interesting thing is, how do I actually do this generation? And so I think we're actually going to leave this mostly aside, and we're going to focus on this generation, right? What I would like to get done by the end of the stream is I would like to have this service command generator thing implemented. That would be kind of the ideal. Because that's really what's in here, is this the meat of this stuff. And I think that it is probably pretty reasonable to implement this in a sitting. Like this, it's only like 1,000 lines of code. It's totally implementable in a sitting, I feel. Totally implementable in a sitting. I'm confident. Oh yeah, here we go. We have invoke service command impl is this thing. And I think this is fine. Like I think that we do it this way. We have service command impl, return, class type, and arguments. And I think we can basically do the same thing. So let's actually just get started writing code in the atmosphere namespace, because like why the fuck not? Include stratosphere. And let's add a tipc. Then let's make like a tipc namespace. And then we will again do and include stratosphere /tipc /impl /tipc impl command serialization.hpp, and that'll be fine. We'll figure out the rest later. tipc. Impl. tipc impl command serialization. This is really the meat of what I care about here. Let's see, we want to include vapors HPP, and we'll figure out the rest later. And what does this look like right here? What does my impl command serialization file look like here? Namespace SF. Yeah, we don't really need a process ID holder. We just need a client process ID. Like, I guess that we probably want the same thing, where it is like tipc client process ID, because this is kind of nice. And we're gonna need out objects, so I'm probably gonna copy that from SF verbatim, basically. Like a lot of this is just gonna be duplicated, but that's fine. Namespace AMS tipc to do space AMS tipc impl. Man, this is such a meme. It's all this machinery. And essentially the only thing that we really care about having is this last little bit. Is what we want to implement is this. And we will actually just explicitly take a class type object, and we will probably want something like this. I don't think that we need to have this be a thing. I like the idea of still allowing us to return results or return void. How much of this do I want to use verbatim? Right, because this like implement common thing works pretty well. Type name command meta, type name ... arguments. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. We're not gonna have like nearly all of this stuff here, but I'm just gonna copy it because it's convenient. We're like not gonna have any of this stuff because it doesn't really matter. We don't really need most of this. Right, so the things that we need to do, in fact, I'm going to delete all of this for now, is we need to validate. Also, these are going to be always inline, unlike for the other thing. always inline, context pair, always inline results. I'm glad that you appreciate it. To do, highlight that the command is valid. To do deserialize arguments, and then yeah, tipc is the new. I've been assuming that T is tiny IPC, but it's the new IPC protocol. To do invoke the command. And this is all going to be inlined, so it should be fast. Okay. Invoke service commands. And I'm passing in a function pointer, but I don't want to pass in a function pointer, really. No. No. This is already always inline, so I don't need to worry about like this service command generation stuff. Right, like I can in fact literally, oh, actually, that's kind of nice, but is there any way to get that lambda to be always inlined? Because I don't want it to be a function pointer. Was there some advantage to my doing it this way? I think it, oh right, it was that commands reuse the processing, but that's not a problem for tipc because tipc is so much leaner. Right, like tipc should basically just be, oh yeah, access the thing directly. Okay. Yeah, I don't need this, actually. This is unnecessary because it's always inlined in the first place. And the code reuse is not actually something that's desirable. Let me copy the to-dos, though. And the actual invocation is just going to be like, you know, it's going to be a std invoke like we have in here. Where, you know, I make this arguments tuple. And then I invoke the tuple using this. Using std apply. When you were just earlier hating on std, was I hating on function pointer declaration syntax? Oh, okay. Got you. Okay. Impl processor type, deserialize arguments. This should be always inlines or whatever. This Marshall processor thing can't fail, so this should be pretty easy. This is all mostly unnecessary. Okay. So a lot of this machinery I'm basically going to want verbatim. Right? Like this type filter works, and so I don't actually need anything separate from it. And tipc does not support domains, so that's simpler. A lot of this is going to be copy pasting, I expect. It supports input data, it supports output data, it supports buffers, but not pointer buffers. It doesn't support pointer buffers. It only supports like map alias buffers, which is kind of nice from a how do I implement this perspective. So we actually know that a buffer is always going to be a map alias buffer. In handles, it theoretically supports those, but I don't even know if I implemented those for this. Did I? In handle, did I implement them? In handles. Num in handles. I guess I must have, which is fascinating to me because I wouldn't have thought I would have bothered. ECS uses an in handle. Okay, that explains it. That totally explains why I added support for it. Input objects, it does not support input objects. It decidedly does not support input objects because input objects don't make sense in tipc. And output objects, it doesn't really support output objects. It just supports output handles, right? Because tipc actually requires you to register by hand. It's super fucking gross. Like you can see that I learned this from PGL. If I like locate the command processor, OX1E23, is this the command processor? Okay, this is the command processor for the shell listener. So where's the other one? Yeah. Okay, so this last command for PGL, if we like look at the PGL services page, PGL services. The command that I care about is git shell event observer, which is command 20. Also, they deleted the command that they added in 11.0, which doesn't exist anymore. It's like super silly. They do this stuff where they like create the handle. They create the objects, and then they actually like explicitly register it. They like create a session for it, and it gets registered with the server. This is like a tipc register subobject thing. And it's crazy. Like, why on earth would you require that the registration be done not automatically? It's super gross that this is being done by the command implementation. But yeah, so it doesn't really support output objects. It really only has input handles and output handles. And in fact, nothing actually requires an input handle yet. But I think we will implement the input handle anyway. I think that we will implement it anyway. Do I have process ID stuff here? No, I don't. Okay, that's fine. Let me copy the process ID type from here because it's convenient. Although I don't think that I need all of this like helper stuff. I think that I can just do a struct. I don't need anything that complicated. Struct client process ID. I think that this can literally just be OS process ID value. I think that that's fine. I don't think I need the fancy stuff. I don't know what benefit it's giving me. And presumably I had a reason here because like I needed to provide this interface for both of these. But this is fine. Okay, service command must return result void. That's fine. I don't want this thing. And this I can comment out. But okay, let's go back to copy pasting because copy pasting is what we live for. And the good news is out means that we don't need to support the shared pointer thing, right? Because all outs are just handles, and I don't need any of this bullshit, which is actually like surprisingly nice. So we can take this and do get argument type for t if tipc is buffer. Argument type is buffer. We don't support input objects because we can't. But at what cost? I know. We don't support output objects. We do support input handles, we do support output handles, and we do support out data, we do support in data. I guess we did the same thing with result here. Shared pointer, no, actually, like shared pointer is like super required here because objects have unspecified shared lifetimes and are reference counted in CMIF. It's unavoidable. Output data, cool, I think that covers everything. And then argument type filter. Yeah, let's just copy paste this because it's, you know, basically what we want. And then we don't have input objects or output objects. Yeah, I know modern C++ can specify the return type after the function name, but I don't like doing that. I find that kind of gross, to be honest. Handle kind filters, yep. Buffer attribute getters. Yeah, I guess we still want these, which is a little silly. But, you know, it's nice to do this. And we're still using these. Do I want to do this way? Yeah, I guess I will do it this way because this is all going to be constexpr magicked out at the end of the day. We don't need to support most of this though. It's all map alias buffers, right? Do I even really need this? I don't need this. What kind of buffer is it? Because the only thing the attributes will say is, you know, what kind of map alias buffer is it? Although, yeah, because we want to support non-secure buffers, I think. See, I like a super rant here. I know. I'm sadly soupless at the moment, but we'll live. Everything is map alias. There's no pointer buffers, which is nice and simple. Raw data calculators. So this is going to be a lot simpler this time. Like a lot simpler. Because unlike CMIF, tipc does not sort parameters. You can see this, which is really interesting. If I go to switch brew SM services, if you look at a git service handle, it takes in it's a register service, right? It takes in an integer, an isLite, and a max sessions. And CMIF stable sorted the arguments by their alignment, which was always like fucking bizarre. But here, the parameters are the same, but it's taking the service name from +8. This is now, it's not sorting, I don't think, is it? Oh, is it sorting? Is it sorting the correct way? Oh, no, wait, I think the wiki's just wrong. I think the wiki's just wrong about the order this is in. Yeah, it's just deserializing them in order. I remember I was looking at this earlier, and there's some commands where it doesn't sort for PGL, I think. But yeah, it's just deserializing them directly. So we will do that. So let's take this and let us revise it for the fact that it is no longer going to need stable sorting. We no longer need stable sorting. We still want the layout helper, I think. And then, yeah, it should be good. Sizes, alignments, and then I don't need to do the stable sort. In fact, like I have this map and I stable sort the map. The really lazy thing to do is sorting done on parameters. Okay, there we go. This is all const expr. Like, this is a const expr std array, so I don't need to worry about this being efficient because it's all done at compile time. Nice. That's the lazy way to do that. Argument serialization info. Yes, I want to generate these again because this was so nice to do. Was this like structure? Night turtle p. I want an argument type. Yep. I want an index and an out index. Buffer. So send and receive. And I get to ditch those fields. I want those. Yep. And I don't need object indexing. So this is a much simpler argument serialization info. Hey. AMS takes so long to build because it's built with love. You can't rush love, Misan. The reason why AMS takes a long time to build is because it is done with love. Yeah, I don't need this shit either, actually. Is the arguments type decayed here? I guess it is. I guess it is still decayed. Hey, werewolf. Right, because like the large data thing isn't a thing for tipc because tipc does not have pointer buffers. Yeah, Atmosphere also builds slowly because I build it with make-j64, and make-j64 makes everything fast. And also this is all in a precompiled header anyway, right? Like all this compile time evaluation is in a precompiled header, so no complaining, I think, probably, but no complaining. Okay. It's only fast because you have a ton of cores. True. Yeah, you should consider having more cores. Args type. Yeah, but precompiling the header only takes like some number of seconds. Don't stress about it. Just download more cores. Yeah, exactly. Arguments type is just tuple of decayed. And then you basically copy this verbatim. In datas, out datas, buffers, in handles, out handles. Yep, we can basically keep that. Yep. For reasons, I don't remember what... I don't remember what these reasons are. I'm sure that when I wrote this forever ago, I had reasons in mind, but fuck, I totally don't remember what these reasons are. Thank you, Past Me, for being so specific. Truly, Past Me is unbelievably based. Fuck me. Whatever, I'm sure I'll figure it out in the process. Yeah, whatever. I'm sure that I can copy paste this verbatim and it's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Buffer marshalling. Yeah. Although, right, like, it's kind of weird that I'm doing this way, this way. Num in buffers, num out buffers. And I guess I need the, I guess I need the predicate thing. I guess I do need that. Whatever, I can just copy paste that. That was fine. In buffer predicate, out buffer predicate. This is so not how Nintendo does this. But that's fine. Can you explain how SF and CMF are related and whether SF still exists with TIPC? Yes, SF still exists. SFCMIF still exists, in fact. Okay, how do I explain this? God, TIPC is like an alternative to... it's really bad. The way this is structured is really bad, right? Because at some level, the kernel provides what I call HIPC SVCs, right? SF namespace, service framework. HIPC namespace. Wrappers for using the HIPC SVCs. CMIF namespace. Logic that processes high-level commands, making calls into the HIPC namespace. This is where domains and processors live. And with TIPC namespace, tiny IPC, probably. Processors live here, calling HIPC SVCs basically directly. Or well, I mean, it really uses OS. Yes, TIPC is a separate namespace from SF. It is not SF::TIPC. It is NN::TIPC. Like the actual like client object is NN::TIPC::detail::IPC interface base. Is a full symbol for memory, which I will type out actually. Client object derives from NN::TIPC detail IPC interface base. That's a real symbol that I have memorized. Don't worry about it. But yeah. Okay, so we assume we have these buffers. We assume we have out, which I'll need to like copy paste later. Oh, I didn't remove these. Nice. But okay, so we've got in buffers and out buffers. In buffer predicate, out buffer predicate. Then what do we have? In and out data marshalling. Yep. This I basically want to use verbatim because it's good. Why the fuck did I use size of t? What the fuck was I thinking? It's already a size of t from the type. Just return 0. Jesus Christ, pass me. Out data align. Yeah. Although, I don't think this is actually true. I think that there are probably no real alignment rules. How are you aware of the namespacing like that? The SDK NSO binary in games, for which there is a game update using 12, contains some client symbols. Actually, outdata is not aligned in TIPC. And I know this because the first argument here is actually... Fuck, this is alignment 1, doesn't it? Troubling. Do you figure out what was the reason this breaking changes so late in the product's lifecycle? What do you mean, what was the reason? The reason is because it's better. Nintendo is not afraid to make these kinds of changes, Balika. Nintendo does this all the fucking time. Nintendo makes breaking changes whenever Nintendo wants to make breaking changes, because they do. Like, the fuck if I know? I'm not Nintendo. Don't worry about it. I don't know if it's aligned. I guess I will implement it as though it is, and then eventually I will find... Let me look at PGL to see if there's anything that has alignment. Oh yeah, deferred kernel object instruction is super breaking. It's crazy that they implemented this. Oh, launch program. It takes in a program location. A program location is a program ID, which is U64. Okay, so actually I can figure that out from this. Great. Launch program is, it's probably command ID 0. Great, since command ID is 16. Keyword from +8. Great. Okay, so they don't do alignment. Right, because this should have 8-byte alignment, but they're totally ignoring that. They are not doing alignment. Wait, are they... What? Wait, what? Do they align sub-objects? Right, like, if you... They don't align the actual raw data structure, sure. But... I don't even know what I need this field for. It doesn't really matter. I guess I will figure that they're doing aligned objects, and we'll figure it out later. Is there anything where there's like a U64 that's like the second argument or something? Takes in a U32 and a map alias buffer? No. Takes in a memory size? No. Takes in a snapshot dump type? Yeah, no. Okay, it doesn't look like I will get this information right now. Yeah, I mean, Nintendo's not afraid to break things, and I kind of admire that about them, actually. Okay, I think we'll roll with its aligning for now, and we just won't worry about it besides that. Why do I have U16 here? Right, like, in-data size is objectively going to be aligned to U32 because the input data is... Is this wrong here? Just popping in here. So wait, how can you development for 12.0 Switch? Do I work for Nintendo? No, I am not a Nintendo employee. I am a Nintendo hacker. I develop the custom firmware for the Nintendo Switch, where I developed a bunch of total control exploits for hacking the Switch, and I am updating my custom firmware to support the new system update. Oh yeah, it totally is related to U16 for type OXA. That's not a thing now. So now it's now we're aligning to 32. Although actually, yeah, that's probably fine, I think. Oh, you've used Atmosphere before. Oh yeah, nice. It's cool. So Nintendo released a new system update, and it breaks Atmosphere, and I am implementing stuff so that it will support the new update. I hear Nintendo Ninja coming. I don't. I'm sure this is fine. Handle marshalling. Yep. Cool. Runtime metadata. Nope, we don't use runtime metadata. We are going to be entirely... We're going to be entirely compile time. I consider that to be a requirement. And this argument serialization info constructor, I think we're going to basically take verbatim, and we're going to do the same thing here, where we like have these argument serialization infos, and then I will just cut shit out of this, basically. Yep. Cool. I am glad you appreciate it, Super Nifty. I mean, this is... Atmosphere is my labor of love. I love working on it, and I am happy that people enjoy it. Yeah, this seems fine. Yeah, this also seems basically fine. In objects, we don't support those. If it's a buffer... yeah, we only support map alias. This is like super simplified, and that's pretty nice, actually. Cool. Send map alias index and receive map alias index. Cool. I think that should be, you know, the same deserializer, whatever. Out raw holder. Intriguing. Do I want to do it this way? Yeah, I think this is basically optimal. Nintendo is already kind of violating alignment rules. Oh, that's what the alignment is for. Okay, I see. I see. I see. I see. I see. Yeah, data align here is a good thing to do. This is actually good to have. I like it. Cool. Yeah, we're gonna use this because this is a really convenient primitive actually. Get address, data offset. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I should have a comment here. Okay, added a comment. So dumb. Love it. What a coincidence. I am also sure that it won't come back to bite me. Out handle holder. Yeah, I basically actually want to use this completely verbatim, I'm going to be honest. This is like super optimal. It's a surprise tool that will help us in the future. Exactly, see, you get it. Copy managed. How does that work? I remember I added this. Oh, but that copy managed was just for, that was so that I could support like output service objects or something. I don't need that here. Copy handles plus index. I don't need that. Copy to. Let me see. I want to use the like actual SVC primitives that I wrote a while ago for this. Include stratosphere. SVC. Or it's actually in Vapors. Vapors, when will the new AMS update be out? When I'm done. I mean, I have a lot, like, I have to implement an IPC protocol. Like, that's going to take time. June 15th. Yeah. Definitely June 15th. IPC. Because I have all these nice accessors that I use for the kernel, and Nintendo is using these. Right, how does set handles work here? Set handle, index, handle. See, that's nice. Right, like what I really want to do is I want to do this. Set raw array to index, source, and length. Yeah, I think we're gonna take in one of these things. I think we're gonna do it this way. That's nice. That's very nice. Yeah, and we've got get process ID here, which is nice. Do I have a process ID index getter? Probably not, I suppose. It doesn't really matter, right? Like if you have a process ID, it's always at index 3, so does it even really matter? How do I want to do this? This would be super ideal to do. I think there's some static thing that I had here that was like the size, get data size. I guess it's just get data size over size of 32, right? Like, it's kind of silly. Get data size. Yeah, it's just get header size and get data size. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, okay, that'll do. Okay. What do we actually want to do here? We don't really want this then. What we really want is some message buffer. A message buffer and an index. Really? And this is SVC : IPC : Yeah, okay. Set raw array, I think. I am pretty sure, yes, that this will be. Yeah, built-in mem copy, good. This should be constant actually, right? Because this is not modifying anything here. Set raw should also be constant. Because this buffer is a pointer. Yeah, releasing things on April 1st is very funny. Yeah, because set was already constant. Okay, so this will be const svc IPC message buffer. Ooh, and actually, even better. T out index. Buffer dot set raw array. And then it's going to be the index and the source and the length. So out index. Out index data size. Okay. How do we get the raw handle index? Right, like I guess that I just template this further with a like I need absolute handle indices basically, I think. Do I provide absolute handle indices in my command meta info? In handles, not out handles. So in my argument serialization handle, I definitely provide I have in move and in copy handle indices. I think we do this differently here. I don't think that we do this like out.copy2 thing, right? Because we're not really doing it this way. And we also don't have out objects, so I think we don't do it this way. There. Inline, always inline, always inline. values inline. Yeah, I think this is okay. And I think that we actually use the serialization info thing later. I'll figure it out when I get there. But the shape of how I want to do this has taken in my head. In-out object holder, we don't need this at all, which is awesome. There's a prepare for process thing. So the first thing that we want to do actually is we want to serialize the attributes that we've parsed about the function, and we want to basically just validate that the header is correct. So in fact, we should add that here. Is what we want to do is we want to figure out this. Am I looking at the wrong file? Why am I at the wrong file? Did I edit this? Oh, did I just click the wrong one? Yeah, okay. More I look at the scope of the Mario, I don't want to touch the part of atmosphere. Yeah, this part of atmosphere is particularly non-maintainable by anyone other than me, which kind of sucks, but you know, you live with it. Dude, AMS Reg is not even bad. Don't be a wimp. I amuse myself. Tag, special, pointer, send, receive, exchange, raw, receive list. Oh yeah, that's the thing that's different here, is that this needs a U32 command ID. Or U16 command ID, even. Command ID equals command ID. Okay, so we've got that now. We need a tag, doesn't have a special header, the number of pointers, which is 0, obviously, the number of sends, the number of receives, the number of exchanges, which is 0, the number of raw datas, and the receive list. Receive list count is always 0. Because there's always there's no pointer buffer. So okay, that's actually pretty good. So let's add that. Static const expert svc IPC message buffer message header in message header. I think I can do it this way. And then we need a tag, which is our command ID. Do we have a special header? Expert bool has in special header. And that's, do we have a process ID? Which is, I think we already have that. Has in process ID holder. Or we have in handles. Or num int handles is greater than 0. Special header. Sends is, or pointer is always 0. Sends is the number of input send buffers. Do I do that actually? Man, am I not actually parsing that? Feeling better after the vaccine, man? Yeah, I am feeling a lot better after the vaccine. Oh wait. Send and receive is literally just in and out here. So this is num in buffers, num out buffers. No exchanges. in data size over size of e32 and 0. Okay. Static const expr svc ipc. Should num in datas be num in data because data is incorrect English? I don't give a shit. Fuck you. Special header. In special header. No, you're technically right, but like fuck you. Right, like in datas reads better. So yeah. And this is going to be some process ID holder. Num in move handles, num in copy handles. And so that should be const expr. Yeah, okay, so it should be good. Cool. And then we should do the same thing for out. Static const expr bool has out special header has num out handles greater than 0. Yes, I also love baguettes. Static const expr out message header command ID yes, out special header 0 num no buffers in the actual reply, right? 0 out data size over size of e32 0. Out special header has out special error. Cool. And that should do for what I want. And then, so I've got these context for bit packs, right? And what I really want to do is I want to just check explicitly, is the header valid? And if it is the special header valid? And so ideally that's a U64 comparison. And so I don't think I exposed the raw values here. Oh, I guess I do with get data, so that's fine. And I do the same thing here with get data. So that is also fine. God, this is gonna be really janky for the checks, but it's gonna be very fast once it's optimized. Gonna be very, very fast, actually. Nice. Okay. So that is that. That is that. And then we were getting to the part where I actually validate this. So validate that the command is valid. So first off, let's make a message buffer accessor. Message buffer, and the input is, I think I have like a get thread local region or something. Yeah, cool. It's arc arm64 get thread local region. Great. Do I have an actual like handler for that? Oh wait, I actually have a get message buffer thing. Awesome, I already provide that. Get message buffer. Okay, so now I've got an accessor for the message buffer. And then creates accessor to the message buffer. Validates the message header. Let me add a little helper. So I'll use 64. Get message header for check. Constants VC, IPC, message buffer, message header. Header. Okay. Then what I want to do is I want to take the get packs for get data. Although it's a dot, not a dash. And then I want to, I guess I'll just define a full field here. Do I have a thing for that already? Atmosphere, libraries, libs, vapors, include util bitpack. Yeah, it's a 0 and it's bit size of 32. Value is util bitpack 32 field, and it's 0 and bit size of U32, and that'll be fine. Value. Okay. That should do it. You ever seen your code show up in an official update yet? No comment. No comment. And then how can I get from this message buffer? Because this really only supports yes, classic. Okay. Okay. This is really groundbreaking stuff. How long do you practice coding a day? I spend a lot of time coding in any given day, actually. Like, a lot of time. But, you know, that is It is largely just me working on atmosphere all the time. Okay. And the message header offset is always 0. So r unless get message header. Oh wait. Textbear 64. Get message header for check. Command meta in message header. Let's buffer dot get 64 0. Going to expect the message header. tipc results. And I need to add the tipc results. So let me do that now. Vapors results. tipc results. tipc is namespace 35. And I put this on the wiki so that I would remember this when I was doing it later. Error codes. Okay. 35 is showing up a lot more than I was expecting it to. I thought this would get me there faster. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I put all of these in the wiki so that I would remember them. I'll remember so that I wouldn't need to remember them. R define error results invalid command ID done. R define error results. And Nintendo wouldn't call it invalid command ID. Invalid method. Invalid message format. Let's also do. What is the primary goal of this custom hardware replacement? It's the primary goal is for me to re-implement Nintendo's firmware because I find it interesting, and so that other people can see how it works. And the secondary goal is to provide a platform for homebrew code to run so that people can experiment with the Nintendo Switch and run their own stuff. Request deferred 100. Well, session closed 101. Cool. I think that is all we really need there. Yeah, I made this too big. That's fine. Results, and then we add tipc here. Okay, back to this. We also want to validate the special header. If context pair command meta has in special header now 32 get special header check. Turn, and can I do the same trick here where I just do header data? Probably. Special header. Why do I call it get header here? It's weird. Special header, get header. Yeah. Oh, right, because there's only one. That makes sense, actually. Return header get header, get value. How do you stay organized in big projects? Just lots and lots of practice, right? Like, this didn't start out big. But I've been working on Atmosphere for like 3 years now. And I have a really, really good memory, basically. I mean, I have written like all of the code for this project. Not all of it, but like 99% of it. And so I don't really need to try very hard. It's just, you know, it's all in my brain. It's all in my memory. I also do refactors all the time. Const expert auto, expected special header, get special header for check, in special header, or unless message buffer dot get. What did I actually call this result? Because I think this is an invalid message format. Yeah, okay. Still invalid message format. Yeah, Fuse will be rewritten eventually, but I didn't write Fuse. It's like one of the very few things that I didn't write. Which, you know, you can tell because it's terrible. All the code that I've written is good. QED. Yeah, Fuse is so bad. I hate Fuse. Whatever. You know. How do I want to do this? This doesn't map so naturally. Yeah, N-word, Nairword, however you pronounce that, wrote the Nairword, wrote the like hardware net library. It's a mess. Two. Okay, if we get to this point, then the header is valid. Also, I'm just going to add a return result success here. So this should actually be okay. Now we've gotten to this point, we have a message buffer, and the message buffer is valid and contains arguments for whatever function we're deserializing. So now we need to actually deserialize the arguments. And how do I do that for SF? Because I'm going to essentially want to do the same thing, I think. And this buffer processing stuff is super crazy. Like, it's really, really crazy. And this is super overcomplicated. Super overcomplicated. Set out buffers. Yeah, okay. Process buffers. This is kind of way overcomplicated, more so than it needs to be. This is more complicated than it needs to be. Yeah, so I have this deserialized argument impl thing. Yeah, okay. Maybe I do still need one of these, like, processor types. Just so that I have something that has access to command meta. Probably. Okay. Let's add that. And processor. Okay. And I guess actually this can become a member function of command processor. Public static constexpr. Actually, this isn't really a constexpr function. It's just a static inline results validates command format const svc ipc message buffer. That's kind of nice because now these aren't like exposed. In fact, expected message header is right, because we know that this is command meta in special header. Value. Cool. Although, no, those are actually, that's more natural expressed this way. I think I prefer it as these const eval functions. That's more natural than doing the like lambda stuff, even if the lambda stuff is like slightly more idiomatic. All right, try. Validate command format. Message buffer. Okay, I like that. How does the argument deserializer work? Args type for invoke, right. I guess I will just take this and copy it in. Args type, using buffer array type. Are buffers still a pointer and a size? I think they are. Fuck it. We're just going to basically copy that type entirely. It's fine. Because I like the way that buffers work. Outdata align. And what is the outdata index? Right. we can actually like optimize a bunch of these indexes by doing this right here, right? Because we have the out message header and the out special header. I must have this. It'll be get raw data index. SVC, IPC, message buffer, get raw data index with those headers. Okay, const expert auto, out, message buffer, raw data index. Index, out special header. Cool. So that's actually really convenient that we can do that, because that allows us to pass it as a out index to out raw holder. Out handle holder type. Yep. Out move handles, num out copy handles. Is that how I still did that? Num move, num copy. Yes. Okay. I think that I can actually implement this as a function now. Size of t out index. Right, because the way that the like out handles will work is it's basically special data index, and get handle is going to be basically this buffer index. Yeah, set handle, index handle. So that's easy enough. I'll get to that when I get to that. That can be a member function that I do later, but I think I know what I want to do there. Yeah. And that'll be at the special data index. Yeah, okay. Cool. And then we want to actually do the deserialization now that I'm done faffing around with that. So to do that is to do a static const expert always inline, args type, deserialize arguments. And it'll just take in a message buffer, I think. Although what is buffer array type here? Where's this buffer array type coming from? Do I just like declare it on the stack, buffers? I guess so. And then I process the buffers. Okay, sure. It's kind of lame though. Right, because this is runtime metadata, and I really don't want runtime metadata. So why does this need runtime metadata? What is that used for? process buffer impl, because like without that, it should all be statically doable. So what is process buffer impl using this for? Oh, right, because it needs to get the output sizes when you don't support, or when you support these output pointers. So I think, actually, I mean, I don't really need to do this, right? Because the buffers are all going to be totally linear. I don't need to process them any differently from the other stuff. I think. Like, my understanding, at least right now, is that I shouldn't need to do this kind of separate processing. I should just be able to deserialize it in the same place where I do all the other serialization. Right, because like when it actually does deserialization here, I'm betting that it's gonna like access the buffers type whenever it gets to buffers. If argument type is buffer, yeah, it just returns buffers. And that is going to be super unnecessary. I don't like that. We're not going to do it that way. Yeah. Turn T of buffers, buffer index. Yeah, no, we're going to do this the more intelligent way, where we like do this all in one go without this buffers thing. So I think the only thing we need is the message buffer array. No. We need the message buffer, we need the out raw holder, and we need the out handle holder. And that's fair. So let's do that then. Static, always inline. Args type, deserialize arguments, and this will take in a constant message buffer. Does tipc drop domains completely? It drops domains completely. It fundamentally cannot do domains. They can't add domains to tipc. It doesn't even make sense to speak about domains in the context of tipc. Deserialize argument simple message buffer. Out raw holder. Out handles holder. Okay, I'm going to continue implementing this, but also I'm going to get up and use the bathroom. So I will be back in a minute or two. I apologize for the fact that I am a human person. Okay, I am back. My microphone might take a moment to adjust to my being back. But hello, G Alexis, if that's how you pronounce that. God, I struggle so much with captchas. Captchas are hard. I really struggle with captchas. Anyway. Yeah, we're basically gonna copy this. Hello, DJ Blitzkrieg. Send line. Yeah. Did I make this like take an index sequence or something? Yeah, of course, okay. That tracks. That seems like the kind of thing I would do. Where am I generating the index sequence? Yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah, Substance. Struggling with captchas is a very human thing. You're correct about that. Okay. If you knew C99 but didn't know how to program in C++, what would your first steps be? That's a really hard question. Man, I don't even know. There's gotta be good C++ tutorials or something. I guess I would take a C99 project that you have written in the past and just like dive in and try and write that project in C++, like using CPP reference in Google whenever you get stuck. I learned this by doing, so I would just dive in and try a project. I mean, I learned to program C++ by writing Atmosphere. Oh, nice. LearnCPP.com. Yeah, I have no idea if that's good, but someone else is recommending it, so maybe it is. Message buffer. Now objects folder. Okay. So now we'll deserialize the individual argument. And we want this to be really efficient. So the info is the argument serialization info's index. And if it's an indata, yeah, this seems completely usable, basically. Although what we really want to do is we want to deserialize it from the message buffer's raw data. So get raw. If context pair is the same as td bool, I can actually do this logic here. Else return c8 index at 1. And that's basically what I'm doing there. Should be fine. In data offsets, yes. Are there any commands where stuff won't be aligned to U32 value? I mean, I guess it must. Kind of jank, to be honest. Whole thing is kind of suspicious to me. Sizety raw index. Want to take this, and then we just want to do. Now I also probably want to get the in raw data index. Yeah, I hate Rust syntax. Rust seems like a great language. I just can't stand the syntax. Turn dot get raw. Yeah, no, Rust seems like a super fantastic language. I just really cannot stand its syntax. It's terse in a lot of places where I don't want it to be terse. I really hate the function syntax in particular. I think the syntax for lifetime manipulation is kind of weird. Rust is like very vehemently anti-C in terms of the way that it structures its syntax. And I just don't... Things don't work the way that my brain expects them to work as someone who is very, very used to C and C++. It feels like it is trying to be different for no reason. Data was offset. Yeah, actually that seems like it basically just works. Nice. Have you seen the checked C project? I haven't. What is that? Oh, and I want to get the handle indexes too, don't I? And it might have a process ID index too. Do I have a getter for that? Or do I just have the get special data index? Probably just the get special data index. That's kind of fine. What is the get has process ID thing here? Special header dot get has process ID. Oh, right. Yeah, Rust macros seem very nice. Right, like, if Rust had C++'s templating and constant evaluation engine and had C or C++-like syntax, I would probably be using Rust. But it doesn't, so I don't use it. The borrow checker is awesome. I am such a huge fan of the borrow checker. Name is a channel index. I forget, is it move then copy or copy then move? IPC marshalling. handle descriptors. Copy. Okay, so it's copy and then move. Sure. Turn T. Message buffer dot get handle. I think that's it. Handle at in index. Handle index plus num in copy handles plus info dot in move handle index. In fact, let us make sure that this is good. There we go. Now we know for a fact that that is evaluated at compile time. I don't know. So I actually really like Haskell as a language. I have written like non-trivial Haskell as like hobby stuff, and I think it is a really, really great language. Why am I treating the handles separately? Why does that make any sense? I think that's bad. I think I'm going to do it differently. I think I'm just, right, because move handle and copy handle are separate types. Right. Okay, I have to do it that way. Out handle, yeah, this is going to be the same thing. In object and out object aren't supported. And so now buffers. Buffers weren't processed earlier. And so, pointer and size. Do I have this tipc pointer and size? Great, okay. Buffer array type. In fact, we're not going to have a buffer array. That's not a thing anymore. tipc pointer and size is definitely going to be a thing, but we're not going to do it that way. So the info argument type is a buffer. And so we're going to have buffer index, send map alias index, and receive map alias index. So how do I do this here? How do I do this here? Well, I like pre-process all the buffers with like this super crazy thing. Index, send map alias index, receive map alias index. Yeah, okay. We are going to do this a little differently. We're also going to have bool is send buffer. I don't really think I need this buffer index field actually, like at all. Yeah, because the buffer is just for the buffer array, and I don't need that anymore. So we can do bool is send buffer. That'll be fine. And then, oh no, we do still want that. Because the buffer index is also used to index into the attributes array. I haven't really kept up with that this year. How's the feature set coming? Anything major still missing? I mean, there's always stuff to do, right? Like, I always invent more work for myself. Atmosphere won't really be done for, like, another few years. I have a couple more years of work in front of me if I do everything that I want to do. Who knows? I might burn out before then. I hope not. It's possible, though. Current info dot is true is false. Okay, I think that's fine then. This buffer stuff is kind of weird though, right? Like right now, tipc is not using any buffer attribute validation, or I need to find a command that has buffers, which I think PGL should have some. So I'll go look at that right now. One moment. Back to PGL services. What command uses a buffer? App alias input buffer content path. So launch program from host, which is command 2. So let's go to PGL. So it'll be here. Yeah, it is not validating the buffer attributes at all. So I think maybe it doesn't even really support that, and maybe we don't need to care about that. It would be nice to not care about it. I guess I'll just ignore it for now. It doesn't really matter. I won't do validation. I'll add like a to-do comment though about it. Where did these go? Okay. Note, there are currently no tipc commands. Use buffers with attributes. Is drop-in system UI replacement still on the table? That's possible, but I'm not so interested in the UI programming, so it's less likely than the other stuff. If these are added, EG secure buffers. Implement checking here. Okay. And so we know that the info will contain what we want. Const expr. If const expr info.is send a buffer, else we have a receive buffer. And what we really want to do is we just want to literally get the map alias descriptor index. Do I like support reading map alias descriptors? I've got to. Map alias descriptor. Message buffer in an index. Great, I do. Okay. So I'm going to use this directly. Let me add that up here. Static const expr auto in message buffer index. CIPC message buffer. And these need to be in, not out. And let me check. I think the buffers are in order of send and then receive. A descriptors are send, yeah, okay, and B is receive. What are the update change and what are you implementing currently? See the 12.0.0 wiki page. This is like my to-do list of stuff to do, and right now I'm implementing the new IPC protocol because they implemented a new IPC protocol that I now have to like add support for in Atmosphere. It's kind of a huge pain actually, but we're doing our best. Send and then receive, okay. Auto. Index. In message buffer index plus info dot in alias index times Map alias descriptor.get size over. Yeah, okay. And then similarly for receive, we want to do this. Where okay, I think that'll be right. Okay, so I've got the buffer indices, and then how do we get these from the message buffer? I think that we like make one of these descriptor things. Descriptor taking in message buffer, and what else? The index. Turn T, using a new pointer in size, where we do descriptor.get address and descriptor.get size. Yeah, okay, great. Okay, I think that is correct deserialization, actually, which is really easy because tipc is so simplified. Okay, so how do I actually do the deserialization here? Args tuple is processor, deserialize arguments, taking in message buffer, the out raw holder, and the out handles holder. It is a lot leaner. The protocol does not have like any metadata anymore, and it's just a lot faster, and it's a lot simpler. It is much smaller code size. They cut the size of one of the modules that uses it from 0x56,000 to 50, like 58,000 or something. 56,000 to 0x29,000 bytes. And so they literally cut one of their module sizes in memory in half by switching. It is a lot smaller in terms of the size of the generated code. I need to declare the out raw holder, don't I? How do I do that? Nice. Okay. Public. Okay, so we've got this now. And then what do I actually do here? So we get this tuple. I did this process ID thing. Oh, right. This is a different thing. Actually, here's a difference, right? Because process IDs aren't input data in tipc anymore. They don't have the weird thing where they like overwrite the input data. So actually I need to add an argument type for that, but that's pretty easy. In process ID. Else if context bear std same as. Oh, and I need to like get rid of this SF stuff eventually. C++. Nintendo writes in C++. I'm gonna type process ID, and actually I like no longer really need this at all because process ID is no longer input data, which is kind of nice actually. Process ID filter, type equality filter. Yeah. Morning, Bells of Steel. You know, I also wonder what's different between my code and theirs. I use a lot more constant evaluation than they do, for one thing. Okay. Where do I actually do the process ID stuff? Tuple filter, process ID filter, filtered type, args type. I target C++ 20 right now. And Nintendo does not use C++ 20 yet. Yeah, process IDs. Value as process ID is number of process IDs is greater than 0. And this is all of a sudden super unnecessary. I think that I can make this better by just doing this. As process ID. Cool. And then I need to handle deserializing process IDs. So context per argument type. Process ID. Actually, I think I don't even need to do anything here. Right? I mean, there's nothing that I need to track in terms of here. So. Nintendo writes their firmware in C++, yes. How is Nintendo doing the deserialization that the service impulse get inlined? Bylaws, Nintendo is doing auto-generated C++ using an IDL. Right? Like, fundamentally, they have some, fundamentally, Nintendo stuff is some other language that gets compiled into C++ source code. It's the only way to produce what I observe. And it's to be done to track process IDs. And I'm kind of against IDLs, so we're not doing that for now. That's a very for now kind of a thing. I mean, there's no way to know what language they're using for their IDL. We just know that they use an IDL because this stuff is auto-generated. Why do they do that? Because it's efficient. It's super efficient. It's super convenient. They can like write their definition in some bespoke language, and then have it compile into C++, and it all works. It minimizes human error, which is nice. There are good reasons to do it. to be clear. It's not like they're being dumb. Okay, so we just need to make a process ID using the like stored process ID. Process ID index. If there is a process ID, it is always the special data index, so that's actually fine. Get process ID. Okay. And now process ID should be handled separately. Cool. So now we've got all of these arguments, which is great. And then what do I do with them? I don't remember this shit. Using true arguments to build sure. What am I even doing here? Man, that's complicated, but it's okay. It's fine. I think I get that. Yeah, the only thing that I actually need is the arguments tuple. And the object. And I think that actually I take this and I use this. Texture returns results. Return object service command impl. Okay. Otherwise, I invoke the service command impl and return result success. And do I like have a, okay, I do. So I think this isn't where this goes in. Like I need to do this, I think. But great, okay. That should be good. Yes. Okay. Although, actually, it doesn't even matter that this returns result, right? Because whatever it is, it'll get cast to result later. So I think that's actually just fine to leave it that way. Anyway, so now we have... Now we've got to the point where we've invoked the command. So actually, that's fine. What I really need to do is serialize output. In fact, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do command result. And I'm going to do command result equals this. Which is now great. Okay. In fact, we are really going to do const result command result equals object. We're going to do this here like this, which is going to be a little silly, but object t dot ix index sequence ix voice inline lambda. Yes, I believe that will literally just work. Right, either this will deduce result success as the result, and this will be a fine assignment, or this will return result, and this will be a fine assignment. Cool, so now we've got a command result as a constant, which is nice. I like when things are constant. Better optimizer. Better for the optimizer, rather. So what's necessary? Copying the output data and copying the output handles. The output handles aren't bad, but neither is the output data, right? Like, I want to set the output result too. And in fact, the output message header should be this thing plus 1, because the protocol returns a result as the last word regardless. And what's kind of weird is that tipc, so far as I can tell, always returns handles even when it like fails. Like if I look at get service handler, for example, which will be 1, we'll have this thing where this will be this, like v19 is this handle, and then down here it will set the magic number, set the like serialization thing, and it will set v7 to be equal to this value. Like what? So v7 is, theoretically speaking, the output handle. But even in the failure case, it'll return whatever this is. And this is inside int 8 v11 plus 8. I guess that works. This is the like user interface object. This is it initialized? If it is not initialized, if v7 is 0, then it will write 0 here. So the output handles, I guess, have to be, because it copies them regardless. It's so bad. It's so bad. I would not do it this way. I really would not do it this way. The out handle holders actually, like, okay, I do initialize them all to invalid handles, so that's fine. It's ugly, but it's fine. Okay, I need to serialize the output data, I need to serialize the output handles, I need to set the output result. Output headers, set output handles, set output data, set output result. The results we can do first because it's pretty easy, I think. Here, auto out message result index is out message raw data index plus, I think it's out data size over size of 32. There we go. Message buffer dot, and then I'm sure that I just have like a set raw or something here. Dot set index value. Yeah, I do. Great. Okay, so that'll set the output result, and then these headers should be easy too. Set man meta out message header if const expr command meta has out special header set command meta out special header. So that takes care of the headers. Then I need to set the handles and I need to set the data, and the data should be easy, I think, because I like did the thing in the data holder already. Didn't I? Out raw holder.copy to. Yep. Out raw holder.copy to message buffer. And then I think I should do the same thing here where I do out handles holder.copy to message buffer. Yep, and out handholder has the out index already. So now we just need to do always inline void copy to svc ibc message buffer and buffer const. And this is the part where I think I'm gonna copy the like thing that I have here, where I like do the out handles. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Out handle holder, right copy handle. Do if const expr num copy is greater than n. Yep. Is it copy and then send? Copy then move? I looked at this earlier, but I never remember. Copy and then move. Yep, okay. Handle is copy handle set get value. And then we just do buffer dot set handle. In fact, I don't think we even need to do the const auto handle. I think we can just do buffer dot set handle, which is nice. Set handle index will be out index plus n. Cool. Zero, and then we do this through 7. Hey, yeah, I have been feeling better since like yesterday, or well, yesterday evening. I felt like shit yesterday morning, but I felt better since, and I've been feeling totally fine all of today. move if context pair num move is greater than n. Null index plus num copy plus n. Move handles n dot get value. Cool. I think that's it. And I think this is a like relatively complete. This should be a relatively complete serializer for tipc. I mean, granted, it's missing. It's missing the like actual things where I copy from SF the types, but I can work on that. Okay, I'm glad I got this done. I'll need to like copy over the buffers and stuff, but I don't really need to do that on stream. My current thought process is that having implemented this, I will work on this some during the day tomorrow, and then tomorrow evening I will resume streaming work on this. So we'll get some work done on this, but then I'll be back to streaming. And that way I like don't waste productivity time, and I still allow you guys some insight into the process. I guess I'm going to call it here, basically. Does anyone have any questions they would like to ask here at the end of things before we call it? Since it is 1:40 a.m. my time, I guess. I will get like 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and I'll be happier after that. How did you learn to write good C++ code? I mean, some people would argue that I don't write good C++ code. But the answer is I just write so much C++, right? Like, Atmosphere is all C++, and I knew no C++ when I started Atmosphere, but I knew a lot of C. And it turns out that when you, like, spend several hours a day writing C++ for your hobby projects, like, you just eventually get good at it because you've spent so much time writing it. Right, like, I just have the benefit of having sunk hundreds or thousands of hours. I mean, if you figure a couple hours a day for 3 years, like 3 years is, what, 1,000 days? Multiplied by a couple hours a day, and that'll be a couple thousand hours. So it just comes from thousands of hours doing it. Rand says, I've been curious for the recent Bluetooth services. What are your thoughts on those? I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by my thoughts on them. Nintendo implemented Bluetooth audio in the Bluetooth driver, but they haven't hooked it up to the audio system module. I mean, there's nothing that I really have opinions on. It's just a thing that they did. Atmosphere come out today or tomorrow? No, it'll come out like after that, right? Like, because there's just so much to do. The like core serialization here is theoretically done. Obviously, it needs testing. But, like, if you look at this, I'm going to need to hook up SM to it. I'm going to need to hook up PGL to it. SM needs big structural changes for it. Like, this is trivial. This is, like, mostly easy. But this is, like, several days of work. Like, I think I was reasonably productive on this stream, and I still only implemented, like, one part of the, like, many moving pieces needed to get tipc working. There's just so much to do. I'm working my hardest, as you can see, from the fact that I just spent 3.5 hours working on this at like 10 p.m. my time. And I mean, I re-implemented all of the kernel stuff over the last day and a half. But there is just so much to do. It'll be more than a day or two. It'll be several days. And I apologize for that, but know that it is not due to me not working hard. But, alright, it sounds like, yeah, no, I'm going to be taking my time. Don't worry about that. And I am definitely feeling better from the second dose of the vaccine. I felt awful yesterday, and then, like, by yesterday evening, I was feeling mostly okay. And I did a bunch of reverse engineering yesterday, like, in my bed. And I have basically felt totally fine since, like, last night at, like, 7 or 8 p.m. So we're good by this point. Yeah, okay. It's been 3.5 hours. I think we're going to call it. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Have a good rest of your evenings or mornings. Or it's 1:45 a.m., so I don't know what you guys are doing watching me at this time of night, but I hope you've enjoyed.